In 2016, a heavily funded disruptor entered the Indian telecommunications market, offering a product that seemed impossible to compete with: free 4G data and calling. Look at this cluster, representing the 12 major telecom providers operating in India at the time. A free alternative caused an immediate industry massacre. Nearly all established players were forced to merge, vanish, or get swallowed up entirely. But amidst that carnage, one company held its ground and maintained a leadership position: Airtel. How exactly does a traditional business, with massive overhead and thousands of employees, survive a brutal price war against a rival giving the product away for $0? To find the answer, we have to look away from the corporate boardrooms of 2016 and go all the way back to 1976. This is an 18-year-old Sunil Mittal, who had just taken a 20,000 rupee loan from his father to start his very first business. He wasn't dealing in high-tech infrastructure. Mittal was selling small bicycle parts in local, fiercely crowded markets where margins were razor-thin. Every day was a fight. Price a part too high, a rival steals the sale. Price it too low, he couldn't pay his father. He learned what customers valued, operating entirely without a net. These early years in the bicycle markets established a baseline for survival. Operating in a high-volume, low-margin environment forced Mittal to master the fundamentals of market demand long before he entered a corporate boardroom. Mittal's first real test arrived in the 1980s. Recognizing that small Indian businesses were constantly plagued by power cuts, he partnered with Suzuki to import and sell portable generators. This graph tracks what happened next. The business was growing rapidly, until the Indian government abruptly banned the import of generators to save foreign exchange reserves. In a single afternoon, Mittal's revenue went to zero. Searching for a new direction, he traveled to Taiwan. There, he noticed something strange. Everyone was using push-button phones, while India was still completely reliant on slow, mechanical rotary dials. Mittal knew the technology was vastly superior, but instead of simply importing them and risking another government ban, he imported the push-button parts and set up the assembly process entirely within India, launching the brand Beetle. He learned that relying entirely on imports leaves a company highly fragile. By moving assembly domestically and introducing a clearly superior technology to the local market, he insulated his business against sudden external shocks. By 1992, the Indian government opened the mobile network sector to private companies. But there was a catch. To apply for a license, a company had to prove they already had telecom experience. Since mobile networks were brand new to the country, no Indian company had that experience. So, Mittal successfully partnered with the French telecom giant Vivendi, using their technical credentials to secure the license. Then came the second roadblock. Local banks refused to finance the infrastructure needed to actually build the network. Mittal bypassed the banks entirely, negotiating direct vendor financing with Nokia and Ericsson to supply the towers and equipment on credit. Those early partnerships laid the physical and financial foundation for what would become the Airtel mobile network. Securing the license and the infrastructure required a masterclass in leverage. By combining Vivendi's technical history with credit from Nokia and Ericsson, Mittal bypassed the local funding vacuum that had stopped his competitors. In the early 2000s, the market was dominated by BSNL, a massive state-run monopoly. They offered widespread, incredibly cheap access, but their massive network was notorious for slow speeds and dropped calls. Knowing he couldn't beat the government on price, Mittal chose to fight entirely on quality. He took Airtel public, raising the massive capital required to rapidly upgrade their technology. This chart compares their strategies when 4G emerged. BSNL opted to build infrastructure in-house, a process requiring years of internal bureaucracy. Mittal, conversely, imported top-tier 4G equipment and deployed it immediately, launching the service in 2012, while his competitors were still planning. When the underlying technology is evolving this quickly, speed to market through strategic imports consistently defeats a slow do-it-yourself approach. Which brings us back to the 2016 bloodbath. Jio was giving away data, bleeding the market dry. Mittal realized immediately that trying to match a price of zero would bankrupt Airtel. Look at this equation for ARPU, average revenue per user. You divide total revenue by total subscribers. This number dictates survival. Mittal enacted a controversial pivot, a minimum recharge policy. He deliberately disconnected millions of non-paying users. Shrinking the subscriber denominator caused ARPU to surge. Shedding that dead weight freed up massive amounts of network bandwidth. Airtel could suddenly offer vastly improved speeds and reliability to the users who were actually willing to pay for it. Intentionally shrinking your own customer base to protect your margins and your network quality is a painful move, but it is the only effective countermeasure against an artificially subsidized price war. Today, the dust from 2016 has settled. Airtel remains a dominant force, having successfully rebuilt its ecosystem to lead within a heavily consolidated market. Their 4-decade journey proves that long-term survival isn't dictated by state backing or massive initial wealth. True corporate resilience requires relentless adaptability. It means knowing when to kill a dying business model, when to rely on outside partners, and understanding that uncompromising quality will outlast cheap volume every single time.